Podcast, your place for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. My name is Schmidt, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy. You guys know him, you love him, Mr. Bro Dinky. What's up, bro?
Not too much there, bud. Just catching up for the week, recording another episode. I don't know if you saw, Nick is finally putting out the stuff for the strap. Gonna go on sale, I think, Sunday. So subscribe to his email list if you want to get that info when it drops. Yeah, aside from that, just kind of hanging out, enjoying all the new releases and stuff this week.
Yeah,
How
it's
about you?
been been good, man. It's been a crazy few days. We've gotten a lot of cool stuff late in the year, which is you know, a good thing as what Geneva Watch Days kicks off. So it's been fun. More comment fodder, you know?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly, you could say that. Um, Yeah, we've got a decent amount of stuff kind of all over the place, really. Nothing not too much in one spot. Very, very mixed. I know one that caught my eye because it's just neat, and with the out of control prices of everything these days, any watch that comes in relatively cheap, under 500 bucks, and is still cool is always like an eye catcher. So Hamilton put out a quartz version of the khaki. I know quartz is a four-letter word for some, but when you think about military heritage watches, a lot of times I think of like the CWCG 10, a quartz watch, right? Your
Mhm.
marathon GPs, many of them quartz watches. And quartz movements are very much, you know, purposefully made, right? They're made to knock around, they're made to be durable,
Yeah.
and they make perfect sense in a military watch. Now, obviously, this is not a standard issue military watch per se, but if you're going to go the distance, you might as well go the whole way, right? So they've made Hamilton has made the khaki field quartz, and they come in 38 like you would expect, but they also come in 33, which is by today's standards
So
very
good.
small. However, by the standards of yesteryear, that's not so odd. Many of like the watches that
No.
were released around like the Dirty Dozen era, you would find them in 33, 34. It wasn't so uncommon. But the nice part about these is they come in super thin. You're looking at 8.3 and 7.5 millimeters, respectively, for the 38 and 33 millimeter models. You can get them in black, blue,
Wow.
and white dial. And yeah, it's just a nice little nifty package. Definitely like a sweet little beater if you're looking for something to really, if you don't want to take your watch off when you're, I don't know, wrenching on the car or whatever it might be, playing sports with the kids or something, why not? Right? For just shy of 400 bucks, 395.
Yeah, and for both sizes, right? So it doesn't matter which one you get, whether 33 or 38. I think it's a sweet little package. You sent this to me earlier today, and I was a little pleasantly surprised because I was kind of like, oh, we've covered that, and I was like, wait, hold on, but this is different. This is new, and it's cool. It's a cool package. I'm glad to see it return. Because let's be honest, like some of these original watches that came out like in the 90s, the LL Bean versions, the Jeep khakis, like they all looked like this,
Right.
right? It has a very similar iconography, something that we see and that we like. Different dial finishing in the sense of like what we have on the dial. We got the numbers now. So it's very cool. And I think, like you said, for 395 for just kind of like a daily grab and go beater, even if you have a manual one khaki, I still think that this is a cool piece that you could add into your collection and have something that you can rock. Or this could be a great watch to give to your son or your daughter that are maybe too young for something mechanical, but still are maybe burgeoning into collecting watches. This, I think, would be a great segue into something like that for them.
Yeah, and I don't think it steps too much on the many other renditions of the khaki. I mean, for one, you don't have the inner 24 hours or anything like that, so it's you still get kind of the overall feel of the style of watch and of the company's design language that you're used to. But I think this one is unique enough that it could exist if, let's say, you happen to have more than one Hamilton in your collection. I mean, it's kind of got a similar dial to the smaller pilot watch that they make, and then it comes in sort of the khaki field case that we kind of know and love. But it's neat. You know, they have some old pictures of some from way back when, and
Mm-hmm.
it looks pretty tried and true to the original from the late 1960s. I'm looking at it's really cool, and yeah, you know, I'm for it. I like it. I think these for me the khakis has always been a slam dunk. I mean, it's kind of a can't miss watch, regardless of where what realm you collect in and what your interests are. You know, it's kind of like a good set of jeans. You know, it'll never look bad with anything. You could always kind of just wear it and do whatever you want. So I'm for it. I like it. I really like, if I could say so, the black with the black dial with, I can't tell if they're, I think it's like a greenish or like just a slightly tinted numeral. It's not
Mm-hmm.
the one
Mm-hmm.
that's not the super patinaed one. It's got kind of like a
Yeah.
faded green. Yeah, I like that one a lot. I think that just looks very neat and clean, and I think that one's my favorite of the bunch if I had to pick.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. It's sharp, man. It's really sharp. And I liked the fact that they added the old khaki logo on the dial.
Yeah, which is super
I think
cool.
that's it's cool. I like that subtle nod. I think it's fun. And again, it's a watch not meant to be serious. It's just a fun grab and go, put it on. It's going to keep working until it doesn't, and you swap the battery and you're good to go again. So I'm happy with this. I like it. 395. Think it's a great price point. I'm excited to see if maybe they do anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Citizen has put out a newer version of their challenge diver. If you're familiar with the Fujitsubo, as it's called. So this was the watch that was originally inspired by the one that they found that washed up on the shore
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm,
time, and then it was found and it was crusted up with barnacles or whatever. And they remade it somewhat recently, and they gave you a black version, a blue version. Well, now they've made one, and it's got some upgraded specs to it. Um, and they've kind of mashed them up. So you got black dial, I'm sorry, blue dial, black bezel, and then even the bezel has a sort of a blue treatment around it to kind of
mm-hmm.
make it pop allegedly. I think it says a platinum DLC coating. I don't know if that's exactly 100% accurate
So
nomenclature.
according to the website, it says that the case and bracelet are in super titanium with a Duratect platinum coating. So I don't know what that means per se.
Yeah, I mean, given the price point, I assume it wouldn't be pure platinum anyway, and I don't even think that's viable regardless. But you know, it's probably some proprietary coating, helps with hardening, some probably something up along the lines of what like a Zin does, if I had to guess.
Yeah, maybe like a tegimented coating or something similar.
Right, right. Um, and this is the 35th anniversary model for the ProMaster branding. So this is 4,500 pieces limited, and RRP is around 1195, which is $200 more than the previous gen. But you know, like I said, it's an upgraded version. I think it looks pretty neat. You get pretty cool diver
Mm-hmm.
look to it. Um, I'm not 100% sure if I like it better than the old one, but it's cool. It's a nice addition to the family, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking for like kind of more of a specialty piece and go this one, but I think, for me, I like the black one that we previously saw, like the original one that they came out with maybe what, a year and a half ago, something
Yeah,
like that. Um, I think this is a nice addition to it. I don't know if it would be my first choice.
yeah. All right. Speaking of ones that might be your first choice, if you don't own a Christopher Ward, I think we were talking before that this might be your first one. So, so they're in their best attempt to break the watch internet, have released their own diver. That is, I would say, probably their most specked out one yet, right? So this is their Trident
Yeah,
Lumiere. Is that a confirmed pronunciation?
yeah, Lumiere.
Not
Yeah,
Lumiere. Doesn't
I
get all
mean
soft on
maybe.
the end. No, I'm just totally playing around. But yeah, you're getting grade two titanium. It's a super slim case. It's only 10.85 millimeters for a 300-meter diver. That is awesome. And you could
It's sick.
guess,
And chronometer.
yeah,
Chronometer
chronometer
strikes.
certified. I know it's got micro adjust. It's got a helium escape valve for all you nerds who love that stuff. And with the name Lumiere, it does not hold back in the lume department. It's got really cool applied raised
Mm.
indices that glow like the Dickens. I don't really know if there's a much of a flaw with this watch, if you could even find one. But it does come in, I believe, three flavors. Orange seems to be the most popular one I keep seeing. I think there's a blue and a black.
Yeah, so there's so the orange one is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, look, I'll say this. I'll say this. I don't think that there's a bad option in the color spectrum that they chose. The orange is the very classic, vibrant, like orange, diving orange that we've come to know and love. You have kind of like a gradient, almost fume dial in the blue, and then you have basically almost like a charcoal black.
Yeah.
That all of them are absolutely stunning. I love the constraints here that they place on the dial, keeping it just the Christopher Ward logo. There's no text, and then you just have chronometer and depth rating. Like that is just clean.
It's very bare
It
bones.
almost gives me the appearance. It almost gives me the appearance of almost like a pseudo sterile dial. You know, it's very simple, very clean, and very legible. And the fact that they're using this new technology for the luminescence of the watch to me is very cool. I was wondering when more brands were going to do this, because this is a new technology that they have called Global Light XP. Essentially, this is a version of RC Tritech Superluminova, but they can now create it in
3D,
three-dimensional
right? Yeah.
ceramic pieces. Yeah, it's ceramic. So it's ceramic infused with SLN
Where have
that
we
now you
seen
can use
this?
to create three-dimensional before.
We've seen this
Where have we seen this
someplace
before?
before.
Yes, we have. The Tudor Black Bay Pro
Okay, that was probably it.
has those markers, and then so does the 75th anniversary of the Omega Ploprof, the one that they
Okay.
did last year in summer blue. It has the ceramic superluminova indices.
Okay. I know
The nice thing
we've
about this is you
spoken.
get,
Yeah, we've spoken about it before. I remember.
yeah, exactly. Nice thing is we get a very thick deposition of lume. It's made in a much bigger application, which means there's more luminous compound inside of it, and it means you can glow. You can charge up more luminosity for the actual indices. It's going to glow longer, and it's certainly going to glow more intensely than what we are used to. And what you notice too is there's no surrounds on the indices,
Yeah.
right? Like there's not like you don't have like an applied element and then the lume's filled in. You have the entire indice itself made out of the lume
Yeah.
material, which is very, very, very cool. And I will be honest and say this is probably the best execution of this technology that I've seen thus far.
I think my favorite part
It
of it
looks
is
good.
they did the logo in that as well.
Yes,
So you get a
it's sick.
three-dimensional logo and it glows like a torch. I think it's cool.
It's sick, man. It's very cool. I've been a fan of Seaward for a long time. You guys know that if you listen to the podcast. But to see this watch, I'm like, yeah, I'd spend $2,400 to buy it. Absolutely would.
I also
It's
really
I think
like
it's a
this.
very, very good looking
I
watch.
really like the style of crown guard too. It's like not obnoxious.
Yeah.
It's like kind of
I
subtle.
mean,
Yeah.
I can't find a single fault with this watch. I really can't. The profile is great. You have the professional aspects, like you have the helium escape valve, you have the titanium, you have ceramic bezel, you have loomed bezel. The dial finishing is very aggressive with like this almost orange peel like texture to it. It's got a lot of depth, man, and it's really good. You have a new Christopher Ward micro adjustment clasp system. Like you said, the crown guards are. I mean, it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I think you got to go with the
I
orange too,
really, really
just
like it.
because you have so lights on, obnoxious orange, lights off, obnoxious blue. Like it goes the whole way.
Yeah,
You know, I think that's why you got to go with the orange
yeah.
for my personal tastes. No,
I love it. I love it. I love it. I think you're absolutely right. That is fantastic. But I don't think you could pick a bad version. I think
not at
all of
all.
them in three distinctive colorways were executed very well. So I'm happy to see that. This dude, this signal orange is literally calling my name. Like I need it.
You know what else I would
I need
like
it
to
really
see?
bad.
I would love to see this in some sort of a black coating, black dial, and then and even I don't know, I'm sure it would probably drive the cost up insanely, but like if you could do this sort of 3D printed type loom but color it black so it's just super like so you get that kind of that black base ceramic look to it, and then as soon as the lights go down it's like whoosh, like that would be awesome, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to expand this technology. There's so many ways to do it well, and I'm excited to see brands take it and move it forward.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna be an interesting thing. And also, I mean, good on them. Really, this is like a real achievement as far as when you consider that this brand is considered a micro brand through and through not very long ago. I think they've kind of transitioned out of that at this point. And I think that's why you see a $2,400 price tag, you're like, kind of steep, Christopher Ward, but then you're like, you know what, man, I don't know. They're not really in that. They're not in the little fish tank anymore, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, like I told you before, man, at $2,400, like what you're getting a titanium chronometer spec diver, 300 meters, helium escape valve, ceramic finishing on bezels, the loom tech. Like this is like the sum of the components justify the cost to me.
No, that's what I'm saying. I said they're
I
not they're
hate
not playing in the little pond anymore.
No, I know, yeah, absolutely. And but the thing is, they still have pieces that are in that price point, right? Like you can
Right.
still buy
Yeah.
a Christopher Ward for under $1,000. Okay, 100%. But to me, I hate when brands do a dial change or they do, very minimal finishing change, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to raise the price point $500." That's what drives me nuts because there's no justification to the consumer as to why there's an increase in price. I think all the technology that goes into this, all the R&D that goes into producing something like this, making sure these hour markers are coming out perfectly created every single time. And here's the other thing too, with Superluminova, you have to make sure the blend is perfectly, mixed all the way around before you create the piece. If not, you could have dead
It'll be
spots.
uneven. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I've seen that before. I've seen watches that go, and they pass QC and they have a slight dip in the color or there's a small little imperfection in the loom application because it wasn't mixed the best at the factory or whatever it is, right? um, that thing is important, and to be able to create these in 3 dimension, I think that is a huge achievement for them. I know it's RC Tritech's technology. They're the ones that created it. If you go on their website, you can see that they have like samples of like indices and things that they can create in 3 dimension using this ceramic material. But it's cool nonetheless. And I'm excited to see what Christopher Ward is going to do with this because this watch is cool. Plus, it's got a cool name, man. Lumiere is like I like it. Well thought out.
Yeah. Like I think if you put this up against something else that's remotely the same price, like I mean, would you rather have this or a Diver 65? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean,
So
there's a lot of people going right now on the internet are saying like, "Well, this is the Pelagos killer." I don't know if I'd go that far because I mean, it's a Tudor, right? We're talking about in-house movements, things like that versus a Solita SW300. But if you like the aesthetic of something like the Pelagos, but you don't have the $5,000 or $6,000 to go and get one, maybe this is the concession that you make.
or you don't have the wrist for a 14 millimeter thick watch.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
mean, there's the 39 Pelagos too, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
smaller, it's thinner.
All right. Doxa is going green. They basically have this very nice sea emerald shade in pretty much the whole line here. Yeah, what I'm seeing.
Yep, yep, yep. The whole line.
Yeah, so you're getting sub 200, sub 300, sub 300 carbon the whole way through. Which one is your fave of the bunch?
I'm gonna have to say the 300 carbon.
Me too.
I, I I don't know. There's just something about this like sunbrush finish, like, very metallic looking dial. Like the green is very intense,
Yeah, it is.
right? It's a very
It's a deep green.
saturated,
Yep.
yeah, it's like a Christmas green. You know what I mean? Like it's a very saturated green. Um, very deep, very intense. But I think that with the juxtaposition between the carbon case, it still feels like very tactical and like very sporty, but not in a traditional sporty diver way. I don't know how to explain it. Like, because typically when you think of Doxa, you're thinking of like bright, loud colors,
Yeah.
right? This is obviously a bright color, but it's not necessarily as loud as what you normally get from Doxa. So I think it's a nice take on that, and I like it. I really, really, really like it. Plus, I like the carbon one because it doesn't have the gold hands.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, to be honest.
Yeah. So if I was gonna pick any of the two out of the lineup, I'd probably do the 300 carbon or the sub 200. Because I think they also did the sub 200 very well. It's good looking.
Yeah, and the sub 200s, a little more versatile, a little more kind of everyday. But yeah, the carbon,
Mhm.
the carbon speaks to me. Yeah, but I like the carbon. Any obnoxious color with the carbon looks good for me. Like I really
I
like the
know, I
orange. I
know.
really like the turquoise. I like any color with the carbon case. It just looks really good. The white
Yeah.
pearl. I got to see that one in person. That was awesome.
I mean, you and I have talked about the carbon cases since they came out. Like, there's not been one that we don't like,
No, no,
right?
they're all
Like,
very
they're
good.
they're good. They're good.
That they are. Um, all right. This one has the internet a bit of buzz today. It's actually two watches. So kind of the unforeseen collab. Nobody's nobody saw it coming. H. Moser and Studio Underdog got together to release a pair of watches in a 100-piece limited edition, totaling roughly $65,000. Um,
Yes.
a bit
The
above the
collab
price
we
of
did not need.
no, no, certainly not. The a bit above the price range of the usual Studio Underdog, but it is what it is. But so you basically have one of the most tongue-in-cheek independent brands on the higher end with one of the most tongue-in-cheek micro brands getting together and putting out a passion fruit themed watch. So you're getting a very yellow dial with some, I don't know what you'd call it, burgundy merlot accents. And
Yeah, I think it's more like in the purpley side
it is.
than
It's
than the
it's
than like the maroon burgundy
it's
side.
not quite Los Angeles Lakers, but it's almost there.
Ooh, I didn't even think
You
about
know,
that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, I see it now.
like you can see Braun
I see
walking
it
out in the
now.
the Moser.
Yeah,
The,
I
Braun double wristing would be
I
epic,
could see
but
it. I could see it. I could see it.
but I
I
think
could see it.
if you buy these, you have to double wrist them. If you're gonna wear one, you have to wear them both. I think that's a rule.
Yeah. Now I will say this because we were doing a little bit of background research on this this set. Everyone's like, oh my God, the Studio Underdog is gonna be sold, with this Moser for $60,000. It's not your standard Studio Underdog. It's not your normal ST 1901 movement. It is a Swiss made cam operated monopusher chronograph. So that's another change because traditionally Studio Underdogs are using the seagull
Yeah,
movements,
this is a SW
and
510.
yeah, and this is going to be a much nicer caliber that's going to be finished a lot more decoratively. Now, again, it's attached to a $60,000 price point because you're also buying a Moser. Like, let's be honest, that's why it's so expensive. Um, but what's your take on this collaboration, bro?
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of hot and cold on it. I'm not really a huge independent guy. I like Studio Underdog. I like what they do. I like their kind of cheeky nature. Their kind of food theme has been fun. Although, can I say the whole occupational appropriation thing with the chef hat and everything? I don't know if I'm feeling that. It's a bit too close to
I
home, if
I
I say
knew you
so.
were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. You're going to bring up the chef hat. I thought that was hilarious, but I was also like, I'm not a chef, so it's like, to me, I don't think it is cringe, but for someone
No,
like you,
no,
it's
no.
probably
It's
like,
it, it's it's funny, and and
ah.
honestly, I almost shot that dude uh, a DM the other day because at work they were doing some kind of a theme day of, I don't know, some stupid luau theme or something, and so I wasn't even. It was my day off, and I wasn't gonna be there. And they're like, "Oh, what can we put out for like a snack for our folks?" I was like, "Why don't you do Hawaiian pie? Like, it's like a because we just got these fancy new ovens." You're like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, they did it, but I had all the stuff like together, like you could clearly see what was going on, like the prep, the mise en place, as you would say. And so I was
Okay.
gonna snap it and like send it to him, be like, "Yo, dude," because that was the big gag when they did those Hawaiian style with Time and Tide. They had that whole thing going where they were
Yeah, 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 yeah.
different pizza dials and everything, and one of them was Hawaiian, and it was actually the title of our episode, if I do say so myself. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hot and cold on it. I'm not the biggest Moser guy. It's their watches don't really do a lot for me, although I know what they kind of stand for, and I appreciate their playful nature.
Yeah, the humor
Yeah,
is there. The humor is
yeah.
there.
I would consider myself a studio guy, but I don't know. I mean, this is a lot of cash. I'm not gonna lie to you, but
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, I get it, and 100%. I'm of the same mindset to you. I don't own a studio, but I know plenty of guys that do.
well, they sell
You know,
out. What are you gonna
well,
do?
yeah, 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 for sure. But like even people like in my local watch collector group, where I'm at, there's a couple guys that got a couple studios, and they're just cool, man. Every time that they bring them to the meetup, I just like love fidgeting with it because I think it's just a fun watch. It's beautifully done. The watermelon has always been my favorite. Like it's just cool.
Not the eggplant.
No, the eggplant. Um, What a funny troll. But I appreciate what they're able to do, and I like that they did a collaboration. I don't know if Moser was the company to do the collaboration with, but I can also understand why, right? Because that's also the tongue-in-cheekiness of both of these brands. It's kind of the idea that like Moser is at the higher echelon of the watch industry, and they're like, yeah, we can be playful too. And like you said, Studio is at the lower end of the watch industry, but also being a very playful thing. Why not combine together and basically make a big giant joke of the industry itself?
Well,
And I
that
think I think
yeah.
that that's kind of the meta thing about all this. So like, oh look, we're both tongue in cheek. Let's be tongue in cheek together and make everyone laugh and also mad because that's what we do anyway. You know what I mean?
I will say that honestly, the teaming up is, I think, bigger than the individual pieces of the watches here. I think seeing something like this is rather unprecedented, and I think to see it is impressive, and it's good on both of them for getting it done because it is definitely neat. I'd love to know how this came about.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be an interesting
Right, like I
conversation.
wonder if was this like over drinks and people were just like smashed out of their mind, 10 deep, and they're like, "Yo, bro, let's do a collab."
Moser in studio.
Like they're, bro, let's do a collab. Turn
Yeah.
this, light this, burn this bitch down.
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, but that's kind of like what they're both disruptors in their respective capacities. And I think this collaboration has disrupted everyone's Instagram feed for the entirety of the day. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of a very meta way of even poking more fun at the seriousness or unseriousness that can be had within the industry. So I can respect it. I'm not going to run out and spend $60,000 to buy a Moser, but I know people out there exist that would, and maybe this is kind of a funny, tongue-in-cheek way of having something cool in their collection that only realistically 100 people will ever have the opportunity to have.
yeah, and I think it would be, like I said, I think it would be more fun to wear the studio around, kind of as the implication, because at the end of the day, you're like you're wearing of the two the lower end watch or whatever,
Yeah, sure.
and that it's typically an affordable. It's typically kind of like the fun, cheeky little kiddie pool indie type brand.
Hmm.
But what it implies is that you got this collaboration of 100 pieces as a set, And for those who know, it's a baller move.
Yeah, yeah,
So you wear the studio, and I think it'd be
yeah, because everyone knows it was attached to the Moser as
right.
well, right?
They
Like,
came
yeah,
as a pair. So
yeah,
unless you really shelled out and probably got raked over the coals to buy the studio from somebody who just wanted the Moser, you probably have them both.
that's a good way to look at it.
So I thought that
It's
would be
cool. It's cool.
the
Look,
fun evil genius way. You wear the studio kind of, if you know, you know.
yeah, I mean, but I think that that's cool. I mean, I'm happy for this collaboration. I was very surprised about it because, and I think people were rightfully upset because when Studio teased this a couple days ago before the launch, people were like, "Oh, here we go. We're getting another Chrono that's gonna sell out super fast." And they're like, "Oh, I can't get
I
that
never
one."
had a shot. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's what I think it was more a gut check than
yes,
anything for people
yes,
who were like, okay, time to get in the mix and try to pull one of these down. But seeing that they were basically not, I don't want to say not available, but that people were priced out of this to begin with
yeah.
for the majority of people. I think that's where,
Well, yeah. I mean,
I did see a fair amount of less than happy comments about it that,
yeah.
about knowing who your audience is and all that stuff. But, there'll be other ones. There'll be more in the future.
I mean, and let's be honest, this is the first time that we've had, at least to my knowledge, that I can think of, truly two independent watch companies that collaborated, right? Like, I mean, yes, Swatch and Omega, but they're sister companies. These are two seemingly unrelated companies within the industry. They have no ties to one another. One is at a very high price point, one's at a very low price point, relatively speaking, to watches. And they decide to say, hey, you know what? Let's do it. That's, I don't know of another time that that's happened. Right? You have watch companies that collab with music artists or artists themselves or, some type of famous soccer team or whatever, right? But when do we have two companies within the industry that have no ties or relationship collab together? I
I
can't think
mean,
of anything off the top of my
yeah,
head.
like you've seen double stamp dials and things like that, but nothing to this extent.
But I mean, is that a collaboration or is that just somebody saying, "Hey, I'm going to sell this, 1601 at Tiffany's in 1985"? You know what I mean? Like that to me is not really a
Yeah, well, I'm
collaboration.
saying I've seen. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was a double stamp. I think it was actually a Constellation that was stamped with Cartier, also. I think.
Yeah, but you have to remember it was stamped with Cartier because Cartier was a jeweler. So it was a piece that Cartier was selling that they put it's no different than a Tiffany stamp. Does that make sense?
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily. It had nothing to do with their actual
It had nothing to do with Cartier's
horology
watch.
arm.
Exactly, exactly. It had nothing to do with Cartier's watchmaking division. It was just that back in the day in the 50s and 60s, Cartier as the jeweler would sometimes sell Omega, Rolex, other brands. And so Cartier would be put onto the dial.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I don't think we've seen this before, to be honest.
It's, I
But
mean,
like I said, it may open the door.
it's, yeah, we'll see.
It's a provocative idea.
We'll see what the future holds. Absolutely.
And kind of what is also interesting is, I mean, Studio is a UK brand. It's not even a Swiss brand, right? It's
Yeah.
not even like you have Swiss brands collaborating. This is completely sort of
And that's my
out of
point.
left
Like
field.
these are two seemingly unrelated things. The only thing that they have in common is they like to poke fun at the watch industry. That's the only thing that they have in common. Everything else doesn't make sense, but it does make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could definitely see a Swiss cheese collaboration in the future here. You know, between these two, perhaps.
A Swiss cheese
Well, going
collaboration.
back to Moser's love of Swiss cheese,
Yes, yes.
right? I could definitely see
That was
something brewing.
yeah, I forgot about the Swiss cheese wrap, the Swiss cheese watch.
Yeah,
where they made it 100% Swiss made. They had even like the Swiss cow's hide for the
that's right.
strap.
For a strap. Yep.
Yeah. I selfishly I wish we would do something with studio. Like our podcast with studio would be so cool.
I
Who
think me.
knows?
I think. Listen, I think you let me wear the chef's hat with Richard, and we, you know, burn the goddamn thing down. I think that's what we
We'll,
do.
we'll
But
we'll make a wrist cheese studio underdog.
I'm not even gonna lie to you. This big eye chronograph with the neon pink and blue, forget about it. Forget about it. It'd be dope. But
Yeah, take my money. Take my
take
money.
my money. Yeah, yes, sir. So speaking of, since we're on the topic of colors and color schemes and everything and all this other fun stuff, I mean, this is sort of my big takeaway from the week because I'm having sort of a, I don't know, existential crisis about it. Um, you know, we've seen this studio big eye look before, right? This is another different colorway. They've kind of, this is sort of in their flagship model. They've really, we've seen the one with the lemonade recently and stuff like that, but this is the one they really broke ground with. We've seen this in a million different
Hmm.
colorways. We saw Tudor decided to introduce a black bay chronograph in blue for whatever
Hmm.
reason.
Hmm.
I mean,
A watch nobody asked for, but yes.
truly, but in the same vein of taking the black bay 58 and just making it blue, we decided to go back to the well on that one, and here we have a black bay chronograph in blue. You can get it on a Jubilee,
Daytona.
which is, it's cool, I guess, but what I'm really getting at here is sometimes a color change can be all the rage, and then other times it's just ho hum. Like this, for me, the Black Bay Chrono is ho hum,
Yeah.
right?
It's literally so irrelevant to me. I didn't even give it a second look.
So I mean, listen, I think it was cool they did the pink with Miami,
Makes sense.
right? That was a kind of a different thing, very limited, very exclusive. They obviously have their own ties to the club. But for some reason, sometimes a color change, and certain brands do this very well, and other brands don't do it well at all. Sometimes a color change with very little other alterations can be you know, uh, such an eye catcher, such a oh my gosh, and everybody's all over it. And then other times you get these colors, it's like, well, color change, that's not innovation. And I find myself torn between the two sometimes.
Yeah.
There's even this week, what we just talked about, there was a few that were, dial variants or whatever it might be, and you're like, oh, this is cool. And then other times you're like, oh, well, this is a nothing burger, and you're like, but how do you make the distinction? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
even the pair of Grand Seikos that dropped, right? They put out one that's kind of like it has a similar dial to the one that I have, but it's a very vibrant orange, and it's got sort of a faded look to it, fades to black, and it's just very dynamic, and it's sort of a color that nobody really does, and I think that's what really caught people's eye. And I really like the color, and it's not anything much. It's not very much different. It's just it looks really good with the strap that they chose, and the dial color is really really cool. And I kind of joked that it was the pumpkin spice Grand Seiko.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, it's
Tis the season, right?
yeah, tis the season, correct. For me, it's cool, and if I had a whatever it is, $7,000 to throw around, yeah, I'd consider it. But like, what makes certain watches that come out in other colors that it's not much different from what they've offered before? It's not anything that different or special. Why is that cool? And then other times you get Black Bay blue chronograph and it's not cool, and you're like, shrug. I could take it or leave it. Couldn't care if this existed. Yeah, I try not to make myself a hypocrite in my own mind, but I'm having a hard time drawing a line here.
I mean, I think, I mean, maybe we can use kind of this as like a case study, right? Like what Doxa did, right? Doxa for years and years and years and years and years has always been orange dial, black dial, silver dial. That's it, right? Then you started to get, navy dials, and you started to get turquoise dials, and that became
Yellow, yep.
interesting. Then you started getting the yellow, which they done, at some point in the past, and now they're bringing it back, and that's interesting. When they went white, right? When they went white, what was it was it white pearl or whatever it was, the white version?
Yeah.
Um, that was crazy, and it was crazy because it was the absence of color,
Yeah, I think
right?
that's what it
Because
is because Doxa is known as like the color brand. All of a sudden, zero color. You're like, oh,
it's like now this is cool, right? Like it's so antithetical to what they do that it is inspiring and it is worth taking a second look at,
yeah.
right?
I think it's almost like seeing a really cool black and white photograph where you're like, we have all this really vibrant color technology and filters, and yet this is striking.
Yeah, this one feels more evocative, more
Yeah.
emotional, right? Like, and so I think it really comes down to how the color is executed in the brand, right? Like this new green one. Like, is green a revolutionary color? No, it's been very prolific for the watch industry for the last several years now, and we're already moving into different colors, right? But for Doxa to release the Sea Emerald spectrum, especially in things like carbon case, like there's just something that is so well done about that very simple color change, right? But I think what happens when you have something like a Tudor Black Bay, or as I call it, the Baytona Chrono, and you just change it to blue, well, it's the same watch that already was very boring in black and white. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we're gonna release it in blue. Like nobody cares that comes in blue now
And I guess
because it's.
because its other lines have already come in those colors, it doesn't help.
But again, yeah, it just feels uninspired. It feels uninspired, and it feels like it's just like, hey, man, it's Friday. We need a design rendering for this watch. What do you? Just make it blue and send it. Like that's not cool. That's not unique. That's not different.
Yeah, I kind of get that feeling because even I saw recently, I think it was the Longines Legend in green.
Yeah, I mean they just released. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but Longines also released a bunch of legend divers today, or yesterday. I'm sorry.
But so I saw it in green, and I think that's kind of what it was. Is they don't really do this, so it's kind of neat. Whereas,
I mean, they have a terracotta one now.
do they?
Yeah, if you go to the website, and
All
maybe it's
right,
worth talking about since we're talking about color.
let's do that. Well, I didn't add it.
They
Sometimes
released.
I won't add things to the docket of new stuff if I think I'm going to bring it up later. Like I didn't put the Black Bay in there because I was like I'm going to mention it later and it sucks anyway, so who cares?
Yeah. So the new colors are
Oh
there's
wow, look at that.
green, there's what they're calling, I think, terracotta, which is, kind of looks like the terracotta Seamaster. And the photo on the Longines website looks more like an orangey color,
Yeah, this looks a little more
but
copperish from what I'm seeing.
but the photo that I saw on social media, it looked almost red. So it was very, very, very interesting. And maybe this is a different watch, but I mean,
That's a cool
they
color.
some I read somewhere they called it terracotta. Then you have a blue and 39, a 39 black,
Yep.
and then I think that's the four. Yeah, those are the four new colors, but all in 39 millimeter. So I think, when you start to see the infusion of color, when it's done in a good way, or a fun way, or an
Kind of
exciting way,
unexpected, right?
unexpected is when color resonates for people. And let's be honest, we've had more color in the watch industry in the last several years than we've had in the last several decades.
Oh, 100%.
It's crazy, and people want color. It's like when I think about buying my terracotta Aquaterra. There was a lot of people I was talking about buying this watch with, and they're like, "Man, like red's a loud color. Like, are you sure you're gonna
Yeah,
wear
it's
this
very
every day?"
one note. It's very
It's
yeah,
and
I
and
get
and
it.
and there
It's
was and there was a
hard to match.
lot of people trying to talk me out of it. I was like, "Yeah, but I don't have anything that looks remotely even close to this.
Yep.
I don't have anything that is in any way, shape, or form this color, why not? I have so many black dials, I could choke myself with them. Do I need another one? Right? Do I need another black? Do I need another blue dial watch?
It's an excellent point.
And 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 I was like, you know what? Ultimately, I chose it because I loved the timepiece itself. I loved the color execution. I loved that it is different. And since that day, I have not regretted my purchase one singular bit. And it's the most interesting thing because people who know nothing about watches will literally stop me on the street and say, "What watch are you wearing?" I noticed it from across the room. I noticed it from across the airport. I saw it. You get some coffee, and what watch are you wearing? Complete strangers.
Give me your money.
Yeah, that's the one cover. I'm like, please. They're like, what kind of watch is it? I'm like, it's a Swatch. Like, but
You're like,
it's.
I have an open carry license. All right, leave me alone.
Oh, I mean that's fine. It's normally when I'm in a random city in
No,
some
yeah, for sure.
airport
Traveling
where I
on
don't
business.
have that, right? But anyway, it's just this idea that I wanted something that would bring joy, would bring, a life and, pun intended, color to my day. And having something like this does that for me. It makes me feel good. It makes me happy when I put this timepiece on because I look at it and I know that nobody else around me has anything that close to it. And I know that I'm different. That's when color resonates,
Yeah,
right? It's a very passionate color.
I do try to make a point of that when we talk about a lot of new drops and they're in really kind of weird or stark colors. And I'm like, listen, you don't have that many opportunities to get something along this line. So if you're into this, maybe this is the one because, like you said, how many iterations of a black diver, even an orange diver now is very ubiquitous.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with it. I love orange. I love the orange monster. I love, the SKX 011, the new Seaward. I love orange on divers, but I'm just saying the docks, but you having so many eventually going to step on each other's toes when it comes
Yeah.
time to, I want to wear an orange diver today because you're more times than not. And I find maybe this is just me. I tend to pick the same one or two every time because I'm like,
Yeah.
it's my favorite. So I definitely understand your point there. And I, along the same lines, when I bought the Shun Bun, I saw it and I said, number one, you know, and this was it was 2020, I believe it came out. So it was kind of middle of the color rush, but it was still going on. Like it wasn't
It
in
wasn't where it is
it
now,
wasn't
for
right.
sure.
It wasn't full send yet. So I
Yeah.
was thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know when the next time they're going to make something like this comes along. I don't know. I knew it was a US exclusive. They're never really 100% clear on how many they're making, whatever. Not that I was worried about limited or anything, but still, I was like, this, I might have to just pick this one up because I didn't want it to become like some of the previous models that were really cool that kind of sat on your hands about, waited on, and the next thing you know, they're hard to come by. People
Yep.
are asking for more than
Yep.
retail on secondary, and you're like, I know people who sell these. I could have easily just made a phone call, So I was like, screw it. I did it. I called up. I said, box it up, send it over or whatever, and to this day I still have it. I don't have any regrets about
Every
it,
time,
and
every time I ever see you, you're wearing it.
yeah, and I think it's something kind of like you said with the Aquaterra. It's something a little different. It's a little off the beaten path. It's kind of unique. It's sort of under the radar. Even I was at uh my wife's family was having a party. I was in Connecticut, and her sister is in her early 20s, so she's getting serious about dating and stuff now. So
Hmm.
her boyfriend's there. He's a younger dude. Her cousin who is there, who I previously have mentioned, he picked out a cocktail time he wanted to buy, and I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
dude, awesome, right? So they started talking, and I don't butt in because I'm not that guy. I'm kind of eavesdropping, and they're like, oh yeah, man, watch is cool, dude. Like, meanwhile, like I said, I'm sitting here wearing something that's like, in my eyes, super badass, but like to them, they're like, it's just something else. Like it never came up. It never even got there. But I was just like, I was kind of just eavesdropping to kind of see where the conversation went and like get the outside perspective without inserting myself into it to kind of like steer it or,
Yeah.
You know, like when you're somebody who comes into a conversation and you clearly know about it, it always kind of it brings like a little bit of apprehension and stuff. I just wanted to see it kind of unfold as it
Yeah,
went,
you
but
want it to be completely candid, right? You want it to be
totally. So you
open.
know,
Yeah.
I didn't want to alter the opinions or
Yeah.
anything, and it didn't go crazy, you know, into down some crazy rabbit hole or anything. But it was just kind of fun to listen to. But by the same sort of uh, idea that you know it's easy for somebody, you know, even like them. Obviously, they're going to know Rolex. They're going to know, you know, they'll probably know Swatch. They'll know Timex. They'll know, you know, a handful of others. You know, maybe they see a trendy one. They probably know like MVMT, right? Um, but to be able to when someone like that then turns around and you're able to show them something and be like, well, this is sort of off the track of things you'll typically see. And then they're
Hmm.
like, oh, this is kind of neat though. Like it's very different. You know, it's not a black diver, right? It's not your typical dress watch.
Yeah.
It's something a little different. So I think whether it's color, style, whatever, I think that's kind of what we gravitate to. But by the same token, it was the same thing. I was like, okay, this is like, you know, pink didn't pop off the way it did now. It was somewhat pink. It wasn't overly pink. It was,
Yeah.
you know, I still feel like you could blend it in with a you know a t-shirt and jeans and stuff. So it's like screw it. I was like, I'm gonna get it. You know, like I said, I don't have any regrets about it. I still love it. It's awesome. But it's the same idea. The same idea with your Aquaterra. I was like, for some reason, like this isn't a crazy change in case. This isn't, you know, the dial was cool. The texturing was a little different. Not really something they'd done a ton of before. But it was like, okay, this is uncommon, and that's kind of what I like about it.
And when you think about this long term for me, when you think about this long term, I look at my collection today. You know, I have 40 watches or so from all different brands and stuff. We don't talk about our personal collections outside of a few things
I
if it's
mean, how
pertinent
many
to the
episodes do you
conversation.
have, dude?
Yeah, you know, um, we have a lot,
I was gonna say,
but
how much time? How much time you trying to bang into this episode?
so it's we have a lot, but you know, at the end of the day, like I look at my collection. There's a unilateral theme, right? They're all divers. 90% of them are black divers. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
how many do I need? Well, this one's different because this is an Oris, and this one's different because it's a Mega, and this is a Seiko Monster. Like, the, at the end of the day, they're basically the same watch. To the uninitiated, if I took them
Right.
into my room and be
They
like, "This
fit the
is my
same
watch
mold.
collection,"
Yeah.
they're all the same. We know they're not, but to somebody who doesn't know, they are. And I remember a few years ago, I started to make a concerted effort. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to buy something, it needs to floor me. It needs to shock me. It needs to make me feel something. It needs to get me excited to want to own it,
Yeah, it's a good policy.
right? And nothing against it if you know you're going to go buy your first luxury nice watch and you want to play it safe because this is your first one and you don't know when you're going to get the next one. So maybe you buy the black lacquer Aquaterra in 38 millimeter and you're going to wear that for 10 years. Great. Nothing bad. I've already crossed that point a long time ago about playing it safe. So now I will get the white dial titanium blow prof. I'll buy a terracotta. You know, I would get the Christopher Ward Lumiere. Like I want things that are so different and funky and unique and have vibrant colors and all these things because I'm at that point now where I've had boring in quotes, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation. And just
More safe, right?
yeah, it's
Safe.
just safe. But for me now, they seem rather boring, right? They're not as exciting. But the other aspect of this is when you really think about watches that are super collectible today. There were all the watches that people were too unsure of at the time if they should buy them, even
Yeah.
though they liked them.
They weren't
Like,
in vogue. Yeah.
like, hey man, I don't really know if I can pull off a red dot watch every single day. Yeah, you know what? I'll just get the silver dial one.
Yeah. You wonder, especially,
Now the red one's more valuable
yeah,
because it was rarer. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and 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 the other thing too is like because people didn't buy it, inherently the companies across the board were like, well, let's just make less of that one because we're not selling it as fast as we had projected. So all these years down the road, those become the pieces that people freak out about. And they're like, oh, yeah, they only made 1,500 of these pieces in a 5-year production cycle because they couldn't sell. Right. So now that one is exponentially worth more. Now, I'm not sitting here and advising you to go buy a terracotta aquaterra because 20 years from now, it could be extremely rare. But maybe it is. Who
But more
knows?
importantly, wouldn't that feel cooler to have bought it thinking it was dope
Cool.
now and then
Yeah.
being confirmed later?
I
Forget the
mean,
money. Forget
yeah.
the money aspect. Right? Wouldn't it have been cool to have bought something that was a little different, like an Ultraman, right? I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
the orange tips were not for everybody,
No,
right?
no,
But now I'm like, give me that damn thing, man. Like, you know, I'm sure
absolutely.
the red text on the subs turned some people off. And
Oh,
now,
100%. You
whoops,
know it did. You know it did.
whoops.
No, I mean, look at the Singer dial Daytonas,
Right.
right? All the Newmans are like, I don't know, man. These numbers are a little too funky for my tastes.
These shapes are a little aggressive, right?
Yeah, but you see what I'm talking about, right? Those are the types of things that, in the moment, people were like, I like it.
But
My
it's
gut's
not,
telling me I like it, but my
but it's
brain
not
is telling
what's
me,
cool.
because society hasn't made it cool, right? But society never makes anything cool. Because the people that are the coolest in society are the people that are the antithesis or the antithesis of what is perceived to be cool.
Yeah, you ain't cool till you pee
They
your
are the
pants.
disruptors. They are the disruptors. That's why brands like Moser and brands like Studio Underdog, those brands are cool. They resonate with people because they are so uniquely themselves in what they produce, the colors that they choose, how they produce watches, that they force you to like them. And it's not going to be a brand for everybody, of course not. But the people that like them for the right reasons. They attract the people that want to be a part of their organization, right?
Yeah, that makes
Be a
sense.
part of their community. Um, so I think, when you start thinking about things like color, for me, go buy that watch that you liked, that you were afraid that other people wouldn't like on you. Because at the end of the day, screw those people, man. Like I don't buy watches for anybody but me.
As you should.
I mean that we've said that so many times over the years till we're blue in the face. We don't buy watches for anybody but ourselves because at the end of the day, if you are buying a watch for somebody else, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage in that ownership experience.
Yeah,
Because it's
you now have to warm up to that as opposed to
yeah,
it already being kind of stuck in.
it always killed me when I was back in the day, all those years ago when I was selling watches. I always knew when somebody got a timepiece given to them or inherited. Because when I would talk to them, they're like, "Oh, so like, hey, man, so like, do you have any watches in your collection? Like, what do you?" It's like, "Yeah, well, I got a couple watches, but I only wear them on special occasions." My next question as a salesperson was like, "Oh, so you hate it?" And it always threw them off because what salesperson would say that, right? But I always told them, I was like, "Oh, so you don't really like that watch that much?" He's like, "Well, what makes you say that?" I'm like, "Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you really loved it, you wear it every day, right?" And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, so who gave it to you? It's like, well, my ex-wife gave it to me, or my this was my dad's watch he wore every single year for 30 years, but man, I'm 6'5". My dad was 5'10", and he gave me a 33 millimeter date just like what I mean? Like, so they wear on special occasions because it's the one time they feel obligated to wear it,
Right.
right? It's because they didn't pick it for themselves, you know? They didn't get to make that experience choice for themselves where they could decide. So that's always been a philosophy for me because I've seen what that looks like on the consumer end. When somebody's like, "Oh, yeah, I got to watch. I just, comes in my watch, it stays in my watch box 90% of the year. And I bring it out on Christmas and Easter when I have to go see my parents. You know what I mean? Like, or I got to go, see my wife, and it's not really the watch that I want, but she got it for me for my 10-year anniversary with her, that kind of thing, So you see it, and it's sad because they keep it because they know they have to keep it, but they don't wear it, they don't enjoy it because it's not something that they fell in love with. They were just given it, you know?
Yeah, which can for me can go two ways. Like for me, even if sometimes somebody gets you whatever kind of a turd, like if they knew and they made the effort, like sometimes you're like, I listen. It is it going to be my favorite? No,
Yeah.
but it's something I own and it's something that I'll hold on to
And you're
because
not going to be
somebody
a jerk about it and be like,
no, but
you're going to
also
keep it,
but
right?
they listen. They made the effort of picking it out and buying it and
100%.
trying to make an effort about it. Fine, good, it's okay, Whereas I don't know, it's a little different than if somebody didn't know and they were just like, "Hey, I got you this because I was at the store and it's you don't have one of these," and you're like, "Oh, this thing kind of sucks." I don't know, but I get it, and especially if it's somebody that maybe you don't have a great connection with anymore and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it boils down to just getting what you like and getting things that resonate with you and shaping a collection that way. And I think that's kind of where people go off the rails is they kind of just try to buy everything that is cool and everything that comes out. I mean, I used to be really into like the forums and the buying and the selling, and sometimes I would just see the stuff and I'm like,
It's the
okay,
same.
okay, uh, Hodinky Blue Alpinist comes out, everybody buys one. Oh, now everybody sells one. Like, what's oh now everybody buys this? Like, it was just like a one after another after another after another, and it was whatever the flavor of the week was and stuff like that. You were just like, man, like, I get it.
Well,
It's a consumer
and
hobby, and like that's part of it.
it's cyclical too, right? Like it's like the trend 3 or 4 years ago. Everyone's like, all right, we need a Polar GMT Rolex. It's like, okay, and nobody cared about this watch for like 20 years. It comes back out. People are like, oh yeah, it's a nice size GMT. It's white. It's very unique for Rolex. And then like every other post was a white Polar Rolex for like 2 years, right? And nothing against that watch. I actually happen to really like that watch. I know you had one at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you would see the trends
No,
where
for
everyone
sure,
was
for sure.
following the same information, the same blogs, the same Reddit posts, and so everyone was just consuming the same information, thinking that somehow they're doing something unique, but they've already been pre-programmed to get that thing. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
mean,
Like,
I don't want to know how many Black Bay 58s, blue or otherwise, have been bought and sold. Like that was like the flavor of the year it came out, and then all of a sudden, like you just heard less and less and
yeah,
less. Now they have a GMT, which if you had an
I
older
haven't.
one, go
I
ahead.
haven't even seen them in stores. I mean, I haven't really looked for them either, but it's so
Matt,
irrelevant to me. It's
Matt
like,
McDee's got one. I couldn't believe he hopped all over that thing. But again, if you
okay.
really love it, good for you. But I'm just saying, like, it was so that model alone was like, oh my god, when it came out.
Well, I mean, and I'll tell you this: everyone that I know personally in my collector groups that own a Black Bay 58 doesn't have a Black Bay 58 anymore.
That's what I'm saying. It was just a ubiquitous watch. It was like at
Yeah,
first it was this is the perfect dimension diver. It's a good price, good amount of technology, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden it was Black Bay Bronze, and it was all this other stuff, and you were just like, oh well, now it's just a different flavor. So
Black Bay 54. I'm like, oh
that
god.
does happen. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not really listen, if you were especially like if you're a huge Bond person and you're like, this is the close I'm going to get to the Bond sub, more power to you. I
Yeah, I
understand
get
why
it.
I
I get it.
totally
Yeah.
get it. Absolutely. Or if you were hoping for the blue sub and we never got it because all they did was tease the hell out of us and they gave you a blue Black Bay 58, you said, well, this cures all that. Why not? And you love it. Good. That's great. That's great. But
Yeah.
it's the kind of that flavor of the time period buying and selling is sort of it's sort of the Achilles heel of the hobby in that you don't realize how much money you lose till you do it a few times and you're like, man, this is not a good long term way to go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. But it's because, people oftentimes don't buy what they actually want. They buy what society or other people tell them to buy.
Well, you have people like myself, just kidding. People who fall into the same category that they would place me in, who like to tell people what they need to buy.
Yeah.
I don't like to do that. But hey, who am I?
I don't either.
It's just
Well,
something that
yeah. Yeah.
like look,
Have you ever seen that happen though? Like I remember I would always have these guys that would come into the store, and I always hate it. I always hated it when there was like the two bros, or they were like work colleagues, and one guy would come in, he's kind of like the watch Sherpa, he's like the
yeah,
pseudo expert, but all he's ever bought was like Rolex. And the guy comes in, it's like, yeah, man, this watch, I freaking love it. And the guy's like, no, man, that's trash. It's not a Rolex. And he's like, you need to get a sub. He's like, how do we get him a sub? I'm like, I, he don't like the sub.
yeah.
He likes this watch. And the guy's like, no, 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 but that watch is trash. Like, and it always killed me because you could just see this person's face just go from the most excited to just absolutely deflated. And it sucks. And that guy eventually just, oh, I got bullied into buying a sub, and they buy us the sub, you know? And it could be any of it
And
could be a
now I look like all the
Navitimer
other
or whatever.
guys with the bubble vest and the tech pants on Wall Street.
Hmm. Yep. I had a good client of mine told me that I had how's the story go? I had a good buddy of mine tell me the day he took off his Submariner. He was a pilot. He flew for one of the major carriers in the United States, and he was doing what they call a jump seat, where basically you're a pilot, you get on a plane, and that plane is going to fly
You're like a
you.
passenger.
You're a passenger, but they
Yeah.
call it a jump seat,
Yeah,
right?
well, they
Like,
have the funny
you're,
little fold-out seats that are called
yeah, yeah,
jump seats.
yes,
It's kind of like a stowaway seat, or
yeah, yeah,
originally, yeah, but
yeah,
now it's kind of
yeah.
a common thing. Yeah,
Yeah, so they put you on there and they're going to fly you to wherever your next destination is going to be because then you're going to fly the plane from there, right? So he's like, I got bumped up to first class because they had some openings and they're like, oh, you're a pilot, come to first class. He said he sat down in first class and he remembers checking the time on his watch. And he looks over and the guy sitting next to him has a black dial sub. And then the guy who sat diagonally across the aisle from him has a black dial sub. And the guy immediately in the row in front of him, black dial sub. Four watches that are exactly the same in a 5 foot radius. He said, I took my sub off and I threw it in my backpack because I felt so embarrassed for having it. He's like, it wasn't special anymore.
yeah. I
How
mean,
special can it be?
it doesn't feel great to blend in,
No.
which is weird because we were just talking about you do buy stuff to keep up with the Joneses, so
Hmm.
it's weird that both of those go hand in hand, but they do. That you
It's
don't like to
100% true.
blend in, but we will buy things to essentially blend in.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about with the color thing. Like I feel like a hypocrite because I'm like sometimes I'm like this color's so cool, I want one of these, and then I'm like on in a completely different model. This was just a color change. It does nothing for me. Am I a hypocrite? I don't know. So I've been trying to just hash this one out myself, but
Yeah.
I figured I'd throw it out there.
No, I think it was a good topic. It's just one of those things, and we haven't come up with any type of definitive answer, obviously, but just the idea that our philosophy, go buy the watch you want, go buy the one that you like. Don't be afraid of the color. And I think overall color is can be inspiring when brands really take the time to do it well or do it right or give it some type of an emotional response to the consumer. But in other cases where it's just kind of like, hey, we just mailed it in, we made the same watch we made last year and now a different color, without any extra thought behind it, I think that's kind of where we see it not be as resonant. And I think that's an issue.
Yeah, or when you see, like, if you remember, probably 2017, 18, where all of a sudden everything was just same watch, but green, right? It was sort of like when the Hulk got a little momentum and people were started buying them. Well, then it
Hmm.
was everybody, same exact watches, but let's just put a green version.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
was kind of like, okay, all right. Okay. You know, meanwhile, you could have had an already awesome green watch like um the Green Alpinist, right? That was a cool watch that
Hmm.
was green already. Like there
Hmm.
were other green watches that already existed that were cool. You didn't have to
Yeah.
go buy one that was flavor of the week. But again, it's kind of, you know, consumer hobbies. That's what you get.
Yeah. They're all cycles, my friend. All
It is.
cycles.
It is. So, you know, when it comes back around, you guys will all ditch your Piagets and your Cartiers and all the stuff you bought now because that's what we were told to buy. And you'll ditch that for the melt weight and you'll get whatever the next thing is.
Oh, the good old days when nobody wanted a Cartier.
Well, the good old days, if you remember not that long ago, nobody wanted gold. No, nobody.
Yeah.
It was passe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
So
passe.
it's all cycles, man. I saw real quick before we wrap this. I saw this. Speaking of passe and cycles, I saw this guy on TikTok post this photo, or it was a video recording, and he's just standing there in front of a men's fashion store, and then the camera flips around, and it's a bunch of the busts of the people that wear the clothes, right? What's it called? Like what? Mannequins.
Mannequins? Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't
Sorry.
sure if it was like I wasn't sure if you meant like it was like the brand ambassadors and they made
No, no, no,
actual
no, no, no,
busts
no.
of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was mannequins in the store window, and they had the double polo with the pop collars, two different colors, pink, blue, and it was like all these different
I'm
pastel shades.
I'm
And
back in 2003. Is that
he's
what's
like,
going on?
oh God, it's back.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, here we go. Get ready.
I
It's
distinctly
about to be a white boy summer all over again.
this was when Facebook kind of first came out,
Yeah,
and I distinctly remember coming across a group at my school that I went to that was the group against the Facebook group against collar popping.
yeah.
So, so I guess somebody said, "Put your goddamn collar down," and then somebody made a group that was anti that, which was hysterical. I was like, "This is where this is the internet in
Yeah.
2004. This is where we are."
Puka shell necklaces that
Yep.
popped collars, dude. Oh my God.
Hollister, yes.
Yes, 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 yes. Abercrombie and Hollister.
Yep, that's it.
What are you gonna do? But that's it, man. That's all I got.
That's it. That's it. We could leave it there. All right, folks. I don't know. Why don't you guys weigh in with us as well? Throw us your ideas. Tell us about kind of how you feel about the whole thing. If you go through the same kind of mental gymnastics as we do, or what, or I don't know. There's just a different feeling sometimes, and I don't know how to describe it. So maybe you guys can enlighten us. But
There
either
you
way,
go.
Smithers, it's been a pleasure. We'll catch
Always,
you next
man.
time.
Take care.
Later.